Everybody, and welcome to another MX Bikes video. And today, guys, we're running a bit of an experiment here in MX Bikes. More specifically, an experiment on Supercross using the 9 main 450s here in the OEM pack. Now, there's a ton of discussions that people have about these bikes, saying that the KTM super duper fast, the KTM's the best bike, the Husqvarna is the best bike, right? People have their favorites, but mainly you're seeing KTM, Husky, Gas. Those are the bikes everyone talks about. But today we're going to be testing all of these. 2 laps each on each bike. We're using a free AEO setup also on each bike, so everything's going to be as fair as possible. I'm going to be taking the same lines every lap, being consistent. So today I could tell a story that there is a meta. The KTM is the best bike, or maybe we could surprise each other today. Maybe the Kawi will be the fastest bike. I don't know. Hit that sub with that like button. Let's get right into the video. All right, boys, let's get this video underway here. 2 laps here starting on the Fantic 450 again. We're taking the same lines on every bike. Nothing is changing except the bike that we are riding. Everything else stays the same, and we're going to be comparing these lap times. And I don't think we're going to see a huge deviation. That is my guess, and obviously that is also kind of expected because not only are we taking the same lines, but this is also not a very long track. But I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, then that definitely proves that there is a meta bike here in this game. But I don't really think there is. I think there might be when you kind of get towards the top pro level, but I think anything below that, it doesn't really matter. I think for the most part, you know, if I join a lobby, it doesn't really matter what bike I'm on, I'm winning the freaking races, you know, unless there's some other aerial guy that I've raced before that's quicker than me in the lobby. It is fairly rare that I lose, especially in Supercross. That's obviously what the video today is on, is Supercross, not motocross. Motocross a little bit different. There is definitely more of a substantial meta in motocross because you got longer tracks, you got more roughness, so suspension's more involved. But I think Supercross overall, you're not going to see a huge difference in lap times on these 9 450s. So the Fantic, pretty good bike. I do like this bike. I rode it a lot for the 450 season started this year, but I ended up switching to the Suzuki kind of last minute. But I did enjoy the Suzuki a lot, so I don't regret that. But this bike feels pretty damn good, pretty nimble, very good in the whoops, even though that run there was not the greatest ever. But boys, that's going to conclude our first 2 laps here. Number 2 is the Gas 450. It's a bike I'm very familiar with and outdoors, but I have not ridden this bike much at all in Supercross, so it's going to be kind of my first time doing that today. I've done a little bit of warm-up, though, before I'm running these laps, so I'm not 100% just coming into a blind. I don't think any of these bikes are going to give me too much of a challenge. This bike does feel a lot different than the Fantic, though, especially when turning. So I have to get used to it a little bit, but it'll be fun. Another thing I'm going to have to get used to is the gearing on all these bikes. So I will make sure to do a few practice laps off camera before I run my 2 consistent laps. Something I did see with this bike, though, is its whoop speed is very good, which is probably going to be pretty important for lap times on this track. It's probably how they're going to deviate for the most part. Pretty good first lap there. It's going to come down to averages. And I do think a few tenths of a second is going to be pretty telling here. So we're going to see. I'm really interested to see how all these final lap times come together and see if they sort of make sense. Maybe correlate to the, you know, the public consensus, or maybe it goes in a different direction. Maybe the TM450 comes out being the fastest 450 today. I don't know. I'm just trying to run nice, consistent laps, not push super hard on any of the bikes, but also, you know, just make sure I'm getting the rhythms, scrubbing, you know, doing good in the whoops, and just giving all these bikes a fair shot at running good laps. I feel like I've done that so far, so there you go. 2 laps on the gas. All right, boys, bike number 3 is the Honda 450. I have not spent a lot of time on this bike at all, but Jet Lawrence is very good on this bike in real life, so I feel like I should be too. The gearing, definitely got to worry about the gearing here. Freaking gear feels decent so far. By 3rd out, though. I do like shifting to 3rd in rhythm sections, but some bikes do not like that. Suspension on this is very, like, springy. Like, it feels like you get a lot of pop off the face. Almost feels like if you don't scrub, you just lose a ton of time. So yeah, but overall, not too bad. I mean, decent in the whoops. Not as good as the gas, which absolutely flew through them, but good enough. Pretty good first lap there, though. Not too bad. See if we can just replicate that one more time. Give this bike the fair judgment, and I almost died there. I'm gonna be honest. I cased that like never before. But we're actually kind of flying right now. I hate the sound of this bike. My goodness. It's got me losing my train of thought. This thing sounds horrible. Who made the sound mod? Fire him. Fire him from the OEM team or whoever made it. I don't even know. Man. Sounds so bad. It sounds like an MX or ZTV sound mod. Okay. Get through the whoops. Final sand section is sketchy, bro. I feel like I'm gonna lose the front end, but two pretty solid laps there on the Honda 450. All right, bike number 4, we got the Husqvarna 450, I think commonly known as the second best bike out of all the 450s, obviously KTM being number 1. We're gonna see how this thing rides today. So far, though, it is feeling pretty damn good. I do have some experience on this bike. I rode the last round of the outdoor series on the Husky, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun bike to ride. It is very light feeling, very nimble. At least that's how it feels. And then you ask the OEM team, they're like, yeah, that's the second heaviest bike out of the lineup. And you're like, what? That makes absolutely no sense, but that's why I'm not the best bike tester to ever walk the face of the planet of the Earth. But we're not really testing today. We are just simply riding this bike, doing what I at least somewhat know how to do in this game. Not the greatest of the whoops, as it seems the back end has some crazy rebounding going on. But it still felt pretty nice. Lock in for this lap here. Still no mistakes so far in this video. Yeah, we kind of cased that 2 laps in a row, but not too bad. You can kind of case it. Don't want to case that. This lap's actually feeling pretty good so far. That bump, get over that. A little bit of case there, but we're going to be fine. Do this corner, scrub on. I think the whoops are going to be really important on this track. It's not bad in the whoops. None of the bikes have been bad, I'll say. Everything's been pretty solid so far, I'm not gonna lie. Those were 2 pretty solid laps right there. All right, boys, next bike, we got the Kawasaki 450. I've seen some people talk pretty crazy about this bike, so out of all the bikes, honestly, other than like the TM, I feel like this bike's gonna feel the worst, at least from what I've heard from the public, so we're gonna see. It feels really good in the corners so far. Oh, yeah, okay. Suspension is quite odd in the rear. It is manageable. I'm not sure how much that is the setup or the bike itself, but I would guess that the setup probably saved this bike a decent amount, which is possible with a lot of these bikes. A lot of these bikes people test in stock form and they hate it, but it's like, hey man, maybe you got to work the setup out a little bit. And again, as I've said earlier, we got free AEO setups on all these bikes, so it ain't like you got to make your own suspension. You can just get it for free, bro. So not an amazing first lap here, but what we can do here, lap number 2. There we go, got the quad. Wait a second, the Cowie might be barking a little bit, boys. They might have been hating on it. Bike might be the move. I don't know, I'm feeling good on this thing. The whoops, though, I will say, last pass through, not the greatest to ever walk the face of the earth. That's probably where a lot of the time was lost. See if I can try to make it a little bit better here. It's not great. I mean, listen, it gets through them, though. It's not like it's unrideable. Which is really the main test of this whole thing, but there you go, 2 laps. Not too bad, to be honest. That bike, I really thought it was going to be way worse than that. All right, guys, KTM 450 time. A lot of y'all probably been waiting for this. How's the Jan going to do on this bike? I don't have a ton of Supercross time on the KTM 450, but obviously this is known as the GOAT bike in this game, the meta. It does have the most power out of all the other bikes, but power doesn't always mean everything in Supercross. My main question here is, how is it going to work in the whoop section? That's what I really want to know. Because if it just flies through the whoops like no other, like better than the gas was, then that, to me, that's like the decider that, yeah, this bike is a lot more OP than I really thought that it was. So we're gonna see. That's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty good, bro. Okay, we can't lie right now. That was pretty damn good. And obviously pretty damn good lap time there on the board, but we're gonna go for lap number 2. And yeah, bike feels pretty damn good so far. Is it a massive difference? Is this going to win you races versus lose you races? I don't know. We'll see when we take all the averages of the times, but I'd be sitting here lying if I said this bike doesn't feel really damn good right now. And again, a bike that I have not put a ton of time on, but even the Kawi I felt pretty good. It was just the whoop section that really, to me, held it back. And like the gas felt really good on the whoops, but it felt like kind of the other parts of the track, it was getting held back a little bit, so. Felt pretty good so far, though, these 2 laps. I think they were pretty damn good laps. Now we're on the Suzuki. Now, the Suzuki is the slowest bike out of all the 450s. That is, again, a fact. So, we'll see how this goes. We're doing it right after the KTM 450, so I'm very interested to see what happens here. And now, this is a bike I have a ton of time on. It's not like I have no time on the KTM 450 when it comes to just playing this game. I don't have a ton of supercross time, but obviously I rode a lot of outdoors on the KTM 450, so I'm not foreign to that bike, but this is obviously the bike that I'm the best at when it comes to supercross. I'm a huge fan of the Suzuki 450. So we're going to see how it does today. And one of the best things about the Suzuki 450 is how it rides the whoops. It is extremely good in the whoops, as you can see. No bike comes close, and I've been preaching about this bike, man. It might be slow, but man, oh man, does it make it up in certain sections with the suspension and just the reliability of this bike. And so far, that was a pretty good first lap that we ran there, so we'll see if we can do that again. And again, just taking all the same lines, not doing anything too crazy. I'm not doing any massive lines or doing any crazy scrubs. Just getting around the track like I have been on the other bikes. And we're going to see what those results are here at the end. Again, we're doing 2 laps per bike. Obviously, you probably know that if you were watching the whole video, not skipping through like a cheater. And we're going to average the laps together and see where the bikes stand. A little bit of a jump through the whoops, the first bike to do it so far. Such a reliable bike we got here. You love to see it. Love the Dookie. All right, boys, TM 450 time. Did a couple laps on this just to get warmed up on it. Obviously, I never ride the TM 450, so it was a bit of a new experience for me. And I'm going to be honest. At first, I was having some front end issues, kind of similar to how the Fantic felt at first when I got back on that bike. But once I figured that out, it actually feels pretty damn good. The weirdest part of this bike, though, is the gearing. Third gear actually feels pretty damn viable on this thing, and second gear, it feels like you kind of lose power. Once you get into the higher revs, it doesn't really give it to you. You can see there, I cased that on off. But is it good in the whoops? No. It's terrible in the whoops, but I'm very skilled at the game of MX bikes, so I made it look somewhat decent. But honestly, you know, for a bike that a lot of people say is the worst, so far here, can I get this quad? Little case there. It actually hasn't been too bad. I kind of like how the front end feels now, which is weird. Weird how you can get on something, hate it for like the first couple laps, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, this isn't even like that bad, really. Like maybe I'm the one that's just bad. I don't know. Not riding very bad right now. Wait a second. Alright, whoop section. I'm going all out through the whoops. Oh my god, it survives it though. Dude, it feels good in sand, I'm not gonna lie. That, guys, let me tell you something right now. All you TM haters, and guys, I'm one of them, by the way. I just got proved wrong. I thought this bike was horrific, but I didn't really ride the thing. So when you don't test bikes, sometimes you never even know what you're missing, boys. But Pro Precision, who I got this setup from, you guys cook like never before. All right, boys, now we're on the final bike. This is the 9th bike of the day, the Yamaha YZ450F. Now this bike, I'm pretty sure a lot of guys are actually riding this in the 450 class during the Supercross season this year. So this is not a bike that people like don't like or anything like that. This is a bike I actually really enjoyed riding in outdoors this year. Oh, I got 4th overall on this bike at Unadilla. And it was definitely a bike that I was gelling with for sure. It honestly just feels like a better Fantic. That's how I'll describe it. And it feels very light and very nimble. It feels very good in the corners, but also has really good acceleration. I like the KTM, to be honest. Kind of feels similar to the KTM in ways. But a first lap there that I think it actually might be the fastest lap of the day. I'm gonna have to go look at these times again. I think we've been running mostly 47s. I think we had a couple 48s, and then I think a couple laps in the 46s so far. I'm not 100% sure. I think we did run one lap in the 46s on the KTM. Maybe? I might be the first 46. Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't really been paying attention to the laps on the standings HUD over there. But I think we just run a decent lap here. This bike's probably going to be the winner as far as speed. As far as fast lap times go. Don't know why I turned British. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Alright, really? We're going to skip every whoop? I mean, listen, that might nerf it right there. We might have had one good lap and one mid lap. I don't know what's going to happen here, boys. This is going to be close. All right, guys, the results are in, and I've laid out a bit of a spreadsheet here, ranking every bike from just kind of how the community sees them, right? Everyone loves the KTM. Everyone loves the Husky. The Yamaha's good. The Gas, right? Those are kind of the main four bikes, all right? The quintuple everyone talks about. Then you got bikes like the Fantic, the Honda, the Suzuki, the Kawasaki, the TM, the bikes that not a lot of people ride. You know, obviously, I rode the Suzuki 450 in Supercross this year. I didn't do too bad, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of orange on the gate. You'll see some gray, some blue, and then maybe some red for the gas. But other than that, those are the four bikes you usually see. And so that's kind of how I laid this out. And now we're going to talk about the fastest laps and the slowest laps of the day. Now, the fastest laps came from the Yamaha and the Suzuki, while the two slowest laps came from the Fantic and the Kawasaki. What's interesting about this is these are the only laps on this list that were not within 47 seconds. You have the Yamaha and Suzuki, which broke the 47-second barrier into the 46s, and then the Fantic and the Kawasaki, which broke over the 48-second barrier. I think this is really interesting. Obviously, not seeing the KTM have one of the fastest laps, and not even seeing any of the Austrian bikes, the KTM Husky and Gas, not break the 47 barrier. That's quite interesting to me. I'm not surprised by the Fantic and Kawi not having the greatest performance today. At least for a single lap. Now we're going to combine all these, show you the averages, and then rank them, and see if the KTM's on top. What, the Yamaha? Is the Suzuki going to be on top? Boys, I don't know what's going to happen here, but we might see a change of plans. And a change of plans we do see. The Yamaha comes out number one, all right? The KTM did not come out as number one. Boys, this is a huge breakthrough in the science of MX bikes. Nah, but listen, the KTM still came second, but the Yamaha P1 at 47.146 average lap time. The KTM, though, in a solid second, 47.243. But look at the frickin' Suzuki. Look at the banana. Look at the Dookie. 47.255 right there in third. And then, boys, look at the fourth spot. Look at fourth spot. That's a cleanup hitter. 47.405 average lap time from the TM. Are you idiot right now? The Husky came in P7. That was a surprise. Gas P5, not too crazy. The Kawi didn't do very good. The Fantic was the worst today, which is surprising because that's a bike that I usually love to ride. I was riding it so much at the beginning of this year, getting prepared for Supercross, and I thought I was going to stick to it before I switched to the Suzuki. But man, this list, honestly, I believe somewhat proves my point today that all of these bikes can ride just fine. I wasn't pushing the bike super hard, but I did pretty good laps. So I think everyone can agree running in the 47s consistently at Detroit round 5 is not that bad. It's not amazing. I ran hot laps in the 45s, but still, these are pretty good laps, and all the bikes did it. I mean, even the Fantic there, running the 48, that's not great, but it was the first bike we rode. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But overall, all these bikes basically were pretty damn close. And if you guys look at the top 5, they're only separated by 0.3 of a second. I mean, listen, to me, it comes down to you as the rider. If you're someone that crashes a lot, I don't think it matters what bike you ride, because you're gonna lose time in your race no matter what. The extra few tenths of a second you may gain from running the KTM isn't really gonna matter if you're losing an extra 3 to 4 every single lap because you're going down. So it comes down to consistency. Now, if you reach the point that I'm at, or a lot of the aerial guys are, where you're running the consistent laps over and over again, that's when the bike choice starts to matter. But for 90% of the community that's not at that level yet, it doesn't really matter. It's just, what bike do you feel most comfortable on? You know, today I loved riding the Yamaha, and the Yamaha's actually pretty similar to the Fantic. So it is kind of funny how the Yamaha's number 1, the Fantic's number 9, and then, you know, the Gas, the bike I've probably ridden the most for the last few months, is right there in the middle. It's just kind of, everything's just everywhere, you know? You don't really know what's going on, but I think it's a pretty good video. I'm staying up to 5 a.m. editing this right now. I've been editing for so long, but this was fun. I like doing little experiments like this and just looking at the facts and just seeing what's going on. And maybe this proves nothing. Maybe this encourages you to get on a different bike and maybe realize that these bikes are a lot closer than you think on the Supercross track. Anyway, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.